All right, it is that time of the week, which means it is time to talk Dallas Cowboys here on Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star-Telegram sports columnist Mac Engel, joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Longhorn himself, Clarence. I'm just reading your tag. Clarence, set up to fail Hill. Clarence, real quick, before we get into this, just wanted to check how you were doing since your Texas Longhorns lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Everything okay over there?
Fine. You know, we got done in by the seeding committee that had us facing in the second round. You know, unfair. You know, it's unfair that they would put us against Purdue in the second round. It's like it was unfair that Baylor got North Carolina.
I totally agree with you. It was ridiculous.
Like it was unfair that Duke got Michigan State in the second round. It happens, sir.
Don't care. It was ridiculous. North Carolina should have been an 8 seed. I'm going to go to my grave on that one because I'm right. First topic of conversation about the Dallas Cowboys offseason that is going fantastic because they are in first place in terms of financial responsibility. They're under the cap, baby, which is all that matters. I don't even know if a cap really exists. I think it's like the Easter Bunny. I've heard about it, never really seen it. The Dallas Cowboys spent more time, effort, and energy to keep a player who did nothing for them for years. I've never seen a franchise do for Randy Gregory what the Dallas Cowboys did for him. Never. And at the minute that they think they've reached an agreement with their free agent defensive end, he decides to say, you know what? I don't like that sentence in that contract. And he goes to the Denver Broncos. This conversation can go on for a month. Let's start with the top. How big of a loss is this, do you think, for the Dallas Cowboys defense?
Well,
I think it's pretty decent. I think it's huge, but I think it's pretty decent.
Well, on paper, it's a big loss because he was a priority to keep. They re-signed, you know, Demarcus Lawrence, and they wanted to keep their big three pass rushers together. They had committed a lot of resources and time and energy to keep Randy Gregory around, and they feel he's just now, you know, starting to live up to that potential they have for him coming out of Nebraska. So, yeah, they wanted to keep him. On the flip side, he's never had more than 6 sacks. He's never played a full season. You know, you would say just raw numbers, production, that can be replaced. But as far as our offseason plan and what we're trying to do and build this team, he was a big part of that. They did not see him leaving. And something that I would say, what does loyalty mean? You know, the Cowboys stood by Randy. They stood by him when a lot of people said, get rid of him, give up on him, that he would not have a career today if it wasn't for the Cowboys standing by him. And it's his right to not want a clause in his contract to possibly cost him money if he, you know, had an issue with the fine or suspension. But it's the Cowboys' right to put it in there. They got it in everybody's contract except Dak Prescott. Everybody who signs here has it in their contract. It's not a Randy Gregory clause. It's a clause the Cowboys have in everybody's contract. And it wasn't like they pulled the wool over his head. You know, so the initial reports were that, you know, they snuck it in. They didn't sneak it in. It's in all their contracts. It was in the final contract. It's like it was in the contract that, you know, Dante Fowler and Jaron Kearse and everybody else signed willingly to come to play for the Cowboys. So it's unfortunate. Again, he has a right to go where he wants to go. He has a right to choose where he wants to play and not want that clause in there. The Cowboys have a right to put it in there, you know, and it's just unfortunate and disappointing that it didn't work out for the Cowboys and Gregory because it seemed like they were there for him at his lowest point.
That's the part that, I mean, you're not really surprised anymore in this day and age when a guy leaves the team, any team, NBA, MLB, NHL, NFL. No one's surprised, right? The Colts cut Peyton Manning. The Edmonton Oilers traded Wayne Gretzky. So the Dallas Cowboys losing Randy Gregory and free agent.
They let Emmitt Smith go.
And they let Emmitt Smith go. That's even better. That's a really good one. But it's just what you said. I've never seen an organization do for Randy Gregory what the Cowboys did. And only because he hadn't done anything for them to stick by him, as he had more NFL suspensions, season-long NFL suspensions, than he had NFL regular season starts For years, it was that way until the last year or so. So that's the part of it that mystifies me is you've already done all of this already for him. Why include that sentence? And I don't, you can't blame anybody. I don't blame the Cowboys for doing it. I don't blame Randy for saying, no, I'm not doing this. But there is that part of me, and I don't know if it was Randy or if it was his agent, you would know, if they said, no, don't do this. Because I'm like, if everybody else has got it other than Dak and you ain't Dak, what's the problem here? And that's the problem. Like that's the thing I can't figure out was what's the disconnect here?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and including him and his agent, and whether his agent wanted him in Denver where he lives, and all this other stuff. Yeah. But why include it? It's in everybody's contract, and what's also true is the Cowboys have really never exercised it.
No, they never do.
It's just in the contract. If you get suspended, that's an automatic forfeiture language. It comes from NFL. But the fine language, they've never really exercised it. But the Cowboys have tried to pivot, and we're going to get past Randy. The Cowboys will get past Randy. He's in Denver. He's done his press conference. He talked about how the Cowboys negotiated with bad faith. That's not true. I mean, they negotiated. I mean, I remember when they negotiated with Zeke Elliott with bad faith. When Jerry said Zeke who? Then all of a sudden,
that was great.
It's part of negotiations.
Yep.
Zeke was mad as hell in Cabo, but he got his money, and Randy got his money. The Cowboys were giving him the same money he was getting in Denver, so it wasn't a money issue. But they kind of pivoted, tried to rebound from that, and they re-signed Dorrance Armstrong, who's a solid player, more of a backup depth type guy. They went and got Dante Fowler from Atlanta, who really had his best days with the Rams. He only had 7 sacks the past 2 seasons with Atlanta, but he's a former first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Really has never really lived up to expectation, but he has familiarity with Dan
Quinn, yeah,
from their days in Atlanta. So they hope some combination of their and they're also are kicking the tires on Jason Pierre-Paul. 32 years old. He's coming off rotator cuff surgery. They kept him out most of last year, but before last year, I think he had 8.5 sacks each of the last 4 or 5 years. And they're also kicking the tires on Zadarius Smith, big-time pass rusher out of Green Bay, who's coming off back surgery, but he wants more money. He passed up. He turned down. He did the Randy Gregory and had a contract agreement with Baltimore and basically changed his mind because he saw the big money that was out there that Von Miller got. And he said, I'm selling myself short. I want big money. And
what are the chances the Dallas Cowboys, who don't like to go big money on free agents under Stephen Jones, that they clearly feel like they never didn't get the bang for their buck when they went all in for Brandon Carr? Even though Brandon Carr was a nice player, they didn't feel like they got worth the contract that they gave him. And ever since then, they have not done big free agent signings. So what does Zadarius Smith think he's going to get big money from the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, he's trying to get it from somewhere.
Right, but that's not a point of leverage.
He had an $8 million, I guess, contract in Baltimore, averaged around $8 million. He wants more than that because Von got $20 million on an average deal. So I don't know if the Cowboys can get back in on that, especially for a guy who's coming off back surgery. He missed 16 games with back surgery last year, although he came back. He's healthy now. He's coming off back surgery. How much you pay a guy coming off back surgery?
Nothing. Well, the Cowboys gave a giant contract to Demarcus Lawrence. Now, it's different. They knew Tank when they gave him that contract, and then he had back surgery. Just the timing of saying that is insane that they did it, but they did it, and it worked out. Now Tank took a pay cut, and he's here, and he's all in and all that stuff. Clarence, you're sitting there going over these guys. They gave J-Ron Kearse, who had a great year last year, a 2-year deal. They kept Malik Hooker. I didn't even know he was on the team. They bring in Dante Fowler. Amari Cooper's gone. Lyle Collins signed a contract with the Cincinnati Bengals. Of all the moves that they've made, what's the one that you like? They re-signed Leighton Vander Esch to a 1-year deal, kept him around. I'm just going over transactions. Yeah. I mean, this might be
What's there to like? I guess re-signing guys who are already on the team, that's what you're supposed to do. So I mean, I can't say keeping, they've held serve with Demarcus Lawrence. They held serve with Jaron Curse. They held serve with Malik Hooker. What did they do to improve this team?
I don't know.
We'll get back into that. Those are the things that are not there for me.
I mean, and we haven't even have they touched their offensive line? That was totally overrated last year.
They lost the great Connor Williams to Miami.
But we've lost 2 starters, and clearly something about this coaching staff. Yep, they lose him. So clearly there's something about this coaching staff that did not like Lyle Collins and did not like Amari Cooper. In my mind, that's what a lot of this comes down to. Because if that staff of Mike McCarthy liked Lyle Collins and he liked Amari Cooper, those guys would still be here. I guarantee it. There's something about those guys that this staff doesn't like.
Well, I think that they're nuanced because it was about the money as well. And if Lyle, number one, since the staff got here, Lyle Collins missed all of 2020 with the hip surgery, and there was question about his work ethic. And then he missed 5 games last year with the NFL suspension and that was his own fault. So
I don't blame him. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying
I'm going to pay this guy $10 million.
They didn't like.
And we think Terrence Steele is just as good as him. We can save $10 million. So that's there. And Amari Cooper, I mean, again, Amari Cooper, the deal was when he signed the deal 2 years ago, he signed a 5-year deal for $100 million with only 2 years guaranteed. Mm-hmm. It was set up to be revisited in 2 years. It was set up to be revisited,
but I'm telling you, if Jason Garrett was the head coach.
Well, I don't know. They also drafted, your favorite draft pick. I remember you panning the draft pick.
I did.
They also drafted CeeDee Lamb at that point, a guy they felt was the top 10 player in the draft, board that dropped to 17. They gave him number 88 because they felt he was their future number 1 receiver.
Okay, well, let's go into that. He is their number 1 receiver now. Is number 88 number 1? I mean, he's going to get it by default because it's not going to be Michael Gallup because Michael Gallup's not even healthy yet.
Well, let's be honest. He led the team in catches. He led the team in targets. He led the team in yards last year.
So
was he not the number 1 receiver last year?
Well, it was a little bit different, and you and I both know that because his complimentary guy, you and I both know, very likely drew the top defensive back.
I agree. I'm just talking about in terms of production.
Yeah, no, I mean you can't deny it. He's a hell of a talent. He's a really good player. Clearly, I'm eating it on that. No, clearly, I mean I ate it on that one in terms of when they drafted him. My thought was, well, where's he going to fit in? Well, clearly he's fit in. He's been he's a good player. Now let's just discount the fact that he vanished in the last couple of games, including the playoffs. But so did everybody else. When you look at CeeDee Lamb, when he starts going against Jalen Ramsey. Now I'm picking Jalen Ramsey because that's the obvious one. But he's going to get every team's Jalen Ramsey. How do you think he'll do? I think he can go get it. He's not the route runner that Amari Cooper is. He can go get it, and he can make plays for sure.
No, he can go get it and make plays, but that's why you drafted. That's why he's here. That's why he's wearing number 88. He got the legacy 88 because he's supposed to be that type of player. Again, my question is not just about CeeDee. I think CeeDee will be fine. But my thing is coming into last year, the Cowboys said we had 3 number 1s. We had 3 guys who get 1,000 yards. We had 3 guys who can do it all. We had Amari Cooper. We got CeeDee Lamb. We got Michael Gallup. Okay. And then, Cedric Wilson comes out of the woodworks and becomes a very productive player. Those 4 guys, you have a very productive player, talented player. Cedric Wilson has now gone on to Miami as a free agent. The receiving core Dak is going to have going forward now has CeeDee Lamb is number 1, and we fine, he's number 1. But behind him, you have Michael Gallup, who won't be ready for the start of the season. You have James Washington, and you have what? How is this offense? How is this passing game going to be better? The passing game was had the number 1 offense, number 1 in total yards and points last year. How are they going to be better with this receiving core? This is, again, a decidedly pass-happy offense with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and they've got Zeke Elliott, who's a year older, who had a pretty substantial knee injury last year that, to his credit, he played through. He's not the same guy. He's just not. And, as we looked at – you talk about Dak Prescott. You were around Dak this week. Dak says, you know what? There's plenty of time to improve this team. The draft is coming up. He's healthy. Another surgery, because all great quarterbacks have, off-season surgeries all the time. But is he right? I mean, we know he's right. Do you believe him? Like, do you believe him that this team's going to get substantially better today to the start of camp?
Well, see, my thing about it is that they're not as good as they were at the end of the season from a talent standpoint.
Totally agree.
Can they be more productive? Can they, be more efficient? Can they play better in big moments? That remains to be seen. But it's hard for me to believe that you're going to lose Amari Cooper. You're going to lose Cedric Wilson. No matter what you get in the draft, you got James Washington as they going in, and then you don't even know if you're going to have Michael Gallup to start the season. I don't know how long he's going to be out. That talent-wise, you're going to be better. You still don't know what you're going to have at left guard. Your offensive line, you still have – Stephen Jones told me at the Combine that the number one objective of the offseason was to improve the offensive line because the offensive line failed it in the last season. Well, all you've done is lose La'el Collins and you lost Connor Williams. And no matter what you think about Connor Williams, Connor McGovern was not better. He got benched for Connor Williams. And you've done nothing. So you're going to look at trying to improve the offensive line in the draft.
Who's your center?
Well,
are they going to go with Biotis again?
Yeah, apparently you're going to go with Biotis or what? You can't replace both. And you still, there's a question of who's going to play behind Tyron Smith.
Because whoever plays behind Tyron Smith is going to play 3 to 5 games.
Yeah, you're not going to get a full season for him. And then you look at the defense side of the ball, and again, they haven't replaced Randy Gregory. I think, you bring Leighton Vander Esch back, but, you still have holes at linebacker. You still have questions there. You
lost Keanu Neal. He's gone.
Yeah, well, Keanu, he didn't do much, and he was unvaxxed. He didn't. Whatever. He didn't have the impact they hoped he would have. He wants to play safety again. He wasn't happy playing linebacker. So just from a talent standpoint, there's a chance you could possibly be as good, but are you going to be better?
We've seen situations where a team one season, let's say win 12 games, 11 games, and then the next season they don't win as many games, but they're better in the postseason, and that's all this is about, right? Well, you got to get there first, right? And the NFC East is not exactly, especially the Dallas Cowboys, not exactly loaded with a lot of repeat playoff teams the last 10, 15 years.
They haven't had a repeat champ.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking repeat playoff teams, just getting the playoffs, top 7, which obviously it's easier now. Is Philadelphia really that much better?
Yeah.
Probably not. Is Washington that much better? Definitely not. Are the Giants?
They got Carson Wentz. So what are you talking about?
That's a good point. Problem solved. And the Giants are going with Daniel Jones. I mean, that's the thing that's going to save the Cowboys is that the NFC East continues to be the band of idiots that can't shoot straight. And you're like, well, okay, I guess they're going to be the best because the rest of these guys stink. Is that your plan? If that's your plan, that's fine. Not that you're going to sell it. But if there's one thing you'd feel better about as well, we got to win. We got to get to the playoffs. And what's the way to do that? Let's win the division. And if you look at this division, the Cowboys offseason mirrors the rest of these clowns. Yeah, they're any good.
They can win the division again. They should. They're still the best team in the division. I guess the thing that I will go back to what should make the Cowboys better, Dak should be better.
Yeah, and that's it.
This will be Dak's first full offseason in 3 years. In 2020, he was in the contract holdout. He was not around Mike McCarthy in the offseason. Last year, he was rehabbing, from the ankle surgery. So this is Dak's first full offseason under the McCarthy regime. He gets to work on his total game. He's not necessarily a quarterback that elevates the rest of his teammates. He's not Aaron Rodgers in that respect. But that's what you're paying him to do.
That's it. This leads us into our last.
To take that next step and become that guy because we already know the receiving corps won't be as talented. So Dak is going to have to elevate.
So are the Cowboys, because I believe this when they let when they let Amari Cooper go and they traded him to Cleveland for nothing, is that Mike McCarthy thinks that Dak Prescott can be his Aaron Rodgers. That he can put pretty good players around him and they can have just as much success, that there'll be no discernible drop. Having said all that, Do you think the Dallas Cowboys are setting up Mike McCarthy to fail with this kind of offseason?
All I know is at the end of the season, they were mad, they were upset, they were frustrated. Jerry wasn't going to take it anymore. They're going to do whatever they can, Stephen Jones said, we're committed. Everybody's committed to improving this team. They've done nothing. And we know how big this season is for Mike McCarthy with Sean Payton looming, in the background, with Dan Quinn on his own staff looming. Jerry already said, he's a future head coach. It could be the Cowboys head coach one day. You have this stuff out there, and you're Mike McCarthy, and you're watching them just siphon talent off this roster, not replace with anything. And this season is huge for you. And it's not just about getting to the playoffs. You have to do something in the playoffs. You're not going to just win the division to get to the playoffs and keep your job.
Do you think if he get to the playoffs again and they went to the wild card round and they got knocked out in some 6-point game, did he get fired?
I think so, yes.
Do you think Stephen Jones, as money conscious as Stephen is, that he would eat another 2 years and $12 million?
How long is the contract?
Didn't he sign 5 years?
Yeah.
So my bad. Yeah. So this would be completing his third, right?
Yeah.
So he'd be looking at 2 years. That contract is well over.
But Stephen Jones is money conscious when it comes to the cap. This does not go against the cap. That's if
is this funny money, monopoly money?
His contract money. It's not a matter of they got millions, they got billions. That's not.
No. Hey, I know they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, this is eating a contract is not. They will not keep him to not eat the contract. It won't be a money thing. We can't keep him because we don't need the contract. That won't come into the equation.
I think the only way it happens. I mean, as I understand it, the Saints would want something in return, right?
Oh, they would want to draft pick. Yeah, they're
going to want to draft pick. So yeah. I think the only way it happens is if Mike McCarthy gets fired, they've got to miss the playoffs. That could happen. I could totally see that happen.
A wild card loss would do. The fans are already frustrated and mad. It's the same thing. And get into the wild card and losing, I think would do it as well. I just can't see them not improving, not advancing, and thinking, well, let's run it back and see what we're going to do again the following year with the same coach and same organization, same situation. That's not happening. Jerry already said, he needs to win now. He doesn't have many of these opportunities left. He acknowledges that.
No, I know. You said it a couple months ago after they got knocked out by the 49ers. This one felt like your shot. And you know what? Who are we kidding? When we watched the Rams, they weren't going to beat the Rams. They weren't going to beat the Packers. They were probably the third or fourth best team.
You don't know that. You don't know what they're going to. You just got to get there. And the problem is, the unfortunate thing is they didn't play their best football in the biggest moment.
No, they didn't.
No one saw it. The 49ers could have easily been the Super Bowl if not for a drop pick.
No, but, we go back to the Cowboys in the playoff loss. What beat them was basically a 4-man rush.
Right.
That's what beat them. And, if you look at teams that look at the Rams and how they beat the Bengals, Aaron Donald destroyed them. Look at the Buccaneers last year. Yeah, I know they had Tom Brady and Tom was great. Look at that pass rush. And that's the thing that was so disappointing is that I thought this time, and I was stupid. I bought it. I thought with Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence having not played a full season and clearly looking healthy and fresh for the playoffs and Randy Gregory on the other end, I really thought that team had the pass rush to do it. They didn't do it.
Well, again, Micah Parsons will only get better. He will only get better.
He will.
One thing you feel good. I talked about Dak, but Micah Parsons is going to get better.
Yeah, he's
going to be the man.
Yeah,
there's no question about that. So
no, you're right. All right, well, you talked me into it. Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl because of Micah Parsons. Clarence, this was fun. For all your Dallas Cowboys coverage needs, check us out on StarTelegram.com. We'll see you next time. You're on Cowboys Overtime.